So I have to go on to Facebook because of the messaging capabilities that it has, and people can contact me and people want to make plans with me. So I go on to Facebook. That's the only reason I go on to Facebook anymore. But while I was on Facebook, I scrolled through my Facebook feed and I saw somebody that I respect and somewhat adore parrot some ideas that I've seen being thrown about on the internet. And these ideas just thoroughly bother me. And I spent about 20 minutes trying to compose a short response and deleting it, retyping it, and deleting it, retyping it, deleting it, retyping it, because no matter what I wrote, I could just hear it being read in the negative, being read as an attack. In this format, there's a little bit more wiggle room for me to disagree without being seen as disagreeable. I don't like being disagreeable. I like being agreeable, even though I disagree. I'm the agreeable contrarian. It's a painful situation I'm in. So there's this photo there's this screenshot from Terrence Thomas, who's a writer apparently, and he writes, "Accountability feels like an attack when you're not ready to acknowledge how your behaviors harm others." Now, what is this assuming? That anybody who is holding you accountable is automatically right. And it doesn't matter how they frame their holding you accountable. If you argue against that, you're digging yourself even deeper into being guilty, right? It's like the Chinese finger trap of guilt, which is, anyways. So the write-up goes like this. Also of note, those being held accountable don't get to decide what that harm looks like or how best to fix it. So this is automatically, already out the gate, about ceding authority to those who are in the position of blaming you. If somebody comes up and blames you and you cannot decide what that blame is actually about or how to go about making reparations for that, you are completely stripped of any power, of any agency to assess the situation and then to decide how to fix the situation. No, the onus is on you to accept the blame wholeheartedly. To continue, to be accountable requires listening to those you wronged. Now, I see this a lot on Facebook, where somebody makes a statement, another person argues, and then somebody else goes, "You're not listening. Your job is to listen," especially in the progressive mindset. If somebody of a certain category makes a claim to grievance and anybody else starts to argue with that or starts to pick apart their logic, they're automatically told to shut up or that you're not listening. Well, let me tell you this. It's fully possible for one to listen and listen deeply without relinquishing their ability to assess a situation, to be skeptical of a situation, and to argue for another interpretation of events. Just because somebody accuses you of something doesn't mean that you're automatically unaware or unable to assess the situation. If somebody classifies any argument against their point as the other person not listening, the word listening doesn't actually mean listening. The word listening means agreement because it's silencing any disagreement. And furthermore, it doesn't make any sense because you post something online, somebody could read that and think about it for a day or 2 days and then get back to you, or have already thought about that before and get back to you. You don't know if they have been listening or not. You cannot read their mind. You can't peer into their thoughts. To continue, to be accountable requires listening to those you wronged. It requires dismissing or getting over your feelings of guilt, the feelings that make you self-centeredly uncomfortable and self-loathing, and remembering that this isn't about you. I see this one a lot too. This isn't about you. So somebody comes up and accuses you of doing something wrong and wants you to be accountable, and yet at the same time says, this isn't about you. If you respond at all, if you do anything other than obey, it's about you centering yourself, recentering whiteness. We hear that a whole bunch. Any white person that says, I disagree with that, they're centering whiteness again. And they are supposed to be decentered because the other person has to have complete authority over the conversation, complete authority for all time in all circumstances. But anyways, it doesn't make sense that if somebody is being blamed for harming another person, that it's not about them. It most certainly is about them. If it wasn't about them, they would not be taken to task. So the phrase or the tactic of "this isn't about you" is yet another means of stripping agency from the party who is being blamed. It's not about how you feel about your behavior and its consequences. So, I don't have any agency to look at my behavior and look at the consequences and evaluate how they're tied together. I have to completely accept the tying together and the interpretation of events of the person with the grievance. And what this leads to is that the person who can act most wounded is the one who gets utter authority over everybody else. And furthermore, can wound everybody else because it's not about you. It doesn't matter if you feel bad. It doesn't matter if I'm hurting you because it's not about you. It's about me, or it's about my grievance. And furthermore, this does not lead to the end goal, I would think, of a grievance. If there's a grievance between two parties, the whole end goal is to let the grievance go, is to modify behavior so that the two people, the parties, can proceed in a cooperative manner towards being productive again, or at least not getting in each other's way. This does not seem to be about proceeding beyond the grievance. This is about amplifying the grievance and allowing that grievance to grow bigger and bigger and bigger in order for the person who has the grievance to themselves grow bigger and bigger and bigger and swallow up more and more agency from every other party in the room. To continue, it's not about how you feel about your behavior and its consequences. It's about the persons who were harmed by your behavior and what you're going to do to stop, change it. Shocker. It's about being accountable. So what is accountability? Accountability is a call to responsibility. If I don't have any say over what I am and am not responsible for, if I just have to accept what other people say about my own behavior, I am no longer responsible for my behavior. I'm only responsible for following their interpretation of my behavior. So it's stripping me of agency, but at the same time, pinning me against the one action that I can do, which is to be sorry, is to prostrate myself and to no longer be an ally, but to be a minion. This playbook is played over and over and over and over again. 1, it doesn't make any logical sense. 2, it doesn't actually solve grievances. 3, it sets up a tyranny of woundedness. And then 4, the person who is the tyrant will no longer get any feedback into their behavior so that they can modify their behavior and stop themselves from eventually getting dethroned. Eventually, somebody who's smarter than them is going to come along and is going to out-argue them or outplay them or mac on all the grievances that they have stirred up in their company and use that to overthrow them. Once you enter into this power game, and you base all your power on accusation and on stripping agency from other people, you blind yourself from a sustained amount of power, a sustained cooperative power, where the checks and balances of a community can proceed forth and make sure that the power gaps between people are in flux, that don't just amass more and more to one side. And, that might be an argument that can be construed as anti-capitalist, but within a interpersonal relationship, when there's a 1%, and that 1% was made not out of providing something for other people to be productive, not providing something of value to others, but assigning other people as needing to give all their value and all your agency to them. Like, I'm not valued enough, give me your value, rather than here's something that I made that is of value to you. This is not an exchange of value anymore. This is an engineering of valuation by fiat of grievance. And so that 1%, the power that one person gains through grievance is inherently unstable because they are actually feeding into more and more grievance. They are not actually adding value to another person's life. So how do we get around this? How do we get around people being slighted, people being harmed on an emotional or a historical sphere? How do we get around that? Is it not their responsibility to get over it? Or is it everybody else's responsibility to give over to them whatever they want because of some sort of slight that they had? It's really difficult because I don't know exactly what this post is about, but I'm pretty sure it's a manifestation of white guilt because I see this over and over and over again. This has all the key components of an intersectional power play, of an intersectional dynamic, which means that we need to reverse engineer oppression in order for the playing field of oppression to be leveled. Not to be gotten over, but to be leveled. It doesn't actually solve oppression. That's my little episode for today. Gonna go to work. Talk to you soon.